Hello and welcome to the RIPTIDE Afterparty, the party where everyone is welcome, especially you at the back, on your own, in the corner. Come on in, feel welcome. Right, this episode is dedicated to the Brighton Spirit Weekender. It was 3 shows over 2 days. So we had an evening show on a Friday, a matinee show on the Saturday during the day, and then a Saturday evening show. Now I actually personally thought that was a really good way of formatting the shows, because it meant you had sort of a raucous Friday night crowd, you know, the drinks are flowing, the chants are going. Then on the Saturday morning, you've got the family-friendly one. So it's a very different energy, a different vibe, and it sort of resets the crowd. It means anyone who's there and had a bit much to drink the night before has a chance to sort of slowly get back into the flow of things. But also it means it's not too overwhelming for anyone younger in the crowd. And there were kids there, and they were definitely having a good time. There were some great heckles during the show. And then, of course, by Saturday evening, you've got the final show of the weekend. And once again, the crowd is all spirited up for it and are more fired up once again. So, clever way of doing it, I thought. Pretty exhausting, I won't deny that. Anyone who worked triple duty on that as a performer or behind the scenes, hats off to you. But hey, I'm talking about how it was something. What was it? What was going on? I think the only way I can really get into this podcast is that, you know, is to say up front there's going to be spoilers. There's so much content over the 3 shows that I'm not going to get into every single match and every single result, and I'm not going to try and spoil everything so that people who are going to listen to this and later watch it on demand, you'll still have surprises, but the major points I am going to have to cover because that's the nature of the beast. So what we're going to do is I'm going to have one section which is sort of the main stories coming out of the weekend, which is going to touch on some of the big results. I'm going to have a second section just bringing up debuts. People are showing up at RIPTIDE for the first time. And then I'm going to have the last section on sort of my favourite matches from the weekend. And in between all that, I've also got 4 interviews, and I'm going to sprinkle them throughout the show. But we have guest ring announcer Matt Richards, we have Canadian wrestler Daniel Makabe, we've got an interview with a fan, and finally we have an interview with Chikara. So we're going to be covering quite a lot in between these segments. I should say as well, you might hear the odd banging or clanging around the place. There's someone doing DIY on the flat above mine as I'm recording this. But just treat it as if I'm backstage and there's a tables, ladders and chairs match going on. Yeah, and perhaps it will seem a little bit more exciting to you. Who knows? Let's begin with section 1. These are the main stories coming out of the RIPTIDE Brighton Spirit Weekender. I mean, the biggest by far is that there's a new Brighton champion, and it is Spike Trivet. Sorry, I might have had a little hairball in my throat then. Spike Trivet, new Brighton champion. He has taken the title via unveiling the latest member of Money vs. Everybody. Paul Robinson, Robbo. Oh, as if we didn't hate him enough. He was always a scumbag, but now he's a scumbag aligned with other scumbags. Scumbag squared. So I'm not going to reveal how Spike got the title match, because I think that's something that can be enjoyed on demand. For storyline's sake, there's a bit of drama to it. But suffice to say, he does now hold that title. He has taken it off of Chuck Mambo. I actually think it's quite exciting, actually. I want to see who's going to be challenging Spike, where it's going to go from here. So, you know, who's going to go after it? Is it going to be TK? You know, Mr. Riptide, is he going to feel he's owed a new title shot? Is it going to be Mambo wanting that belt back? Is Cara Noir going to try and get the big win for the title? Is it going to be Candy when she's healthy again? Will he hold on to it until Cassius is eligible for a shot? There's loads of stuff to go down with this route, and I'm pretty curious to see where it all goes. But I'll tell you another big story that came out of it. Chikara. Oh, the newest RIPTIDE fan favourite. That's right. She's no longer an evil villain. She's now a good old blue eye. We're going to cheer her on to victory. Like I say, I have an interview coming up with her later, which we touch on that slightly, but what's important to know is the crowd were desperate for it, and I think everyone picked up on that. I think she's earned so much respect that it was just waiting to flip over into being cheered. And when you get a chance to watch a match, which I'm going to stress later what it was that caused this, when I'm picking my matches of the weekend, when you watch it, just look for the emotion on her face, and you can see as predetermined or as written or however you want to describe professional wrestling, the emotion on her face just says it all right there. Chikara was someone I don't know if even some of the crowd knew they wanted to cheer until they did. But once that groundswell got building, yeah, they sort of embraced her big time. So it'll be really curious to see where Chikara goes from here. She's no longer aligned with Robbo, of course. He's now with Money vs. Everybody. And Chikara's going to be going her own path, a slightly more honourable path. I'll get more into how Chikara is now a fan favourite when I'm talking about my matches of the weekend. But for now, that's just one of the big stories coming out of it. Another big story, we've got the first Brighton Spirit tag team, well, I don't want to say champions because it's not a title, but they won a trophy. So, should we say victors? Trophy winners? Either way, whoever you want to say it, it was Medusa Complex. Brilliant showing by Charlie Evans and Millie McKenzie. Took on in the finals, I'm going to have to ruin it. That's why I gave the spoilers warning. They took on the Rascals, 2/3 of which, Zachary Wentz and Desmond Xavier. Yeah, and it was a really great match. Again, I'll get on that towards the end of the show. But it'll be interesting to see where the tag team division sort of goes, because Riptide's had a lot of great tag team matches in the past. We've had Ring Camp, we've had British Strong Style, of course. There's a lot of, sort of renowned or creatively put together teams that have worked really well down here. So it'll be interesting to see, what happens with these trophy winners. And the final story, I think, coming out of it is Karen Noir has been attacked by Mike Bird, setting up a bit more of a feud there. Mike Bird, of course, hates gimmicks, wants professional wrestling to be back to the sort of the sporting roots of it. So he's been slowly eliminating people with over-the-top sort of characters, and now he's targeted Karen Noir, and in the ultimate disrespect, tried to wipe off Kara's face. I don't even want to say face paint, I'm just going to say face. Try and take him back from the Black Swan into being a human. We'll see where that goes, but I don't think Kara's going to take that line down. I think your goose is cooked, Bird. I think you're going to have to turn chicken after talking some jive turkey. Yes, I know those were awful, but I am winging it. Hey! Right, well, after those puns, there's nowhere to go but our first interview. This is with Matt Richards, who will be familiar to BritWres fans all over the country. He was filling in as guest ring announcer. Let's cut to that. I'm joined by Matt Richards. It's Richards, isn't it?
It is Richards, yeah.
I nearly said Richardson, and then
Everyone
I
does
double-guessed
this.
myself.
Yeah, so, this happens a lot. Chris Brocker does this a lot, even though, we've been friends for years. He always is like, oh, is it Richardson? Also, as well, because of Adam Richardson, who I work with on a podcast, It becomes an absolute nightmare between, who's who, but it is, yes, spot on.
Good. I've got the right person. Of course, you are known for your own podcast now, Tuesday Night Jaw, and working with Progress as a commentator.
Yeah.
And just known generally. But you're down here at Riptide as a guest ring announcer.
Yeah.
How's all this cropped about?
So, it's a weird sort of... I only found out on Wednesday. So, it was kind of last minute, but... I was down here 2 years ago, I think, at the same event. I think it was Brighton Spirit.
You were.
And I was the layover between Mullet Man and Rosa, who now does it.
Yep.
And I helped train up Rosa and teach her how to do it. Did 2 shows. I went off into the sunset and kind of left it. And I was like, oh, you're in very capable hands. And then Rose has got other commitments. So Josh was like, hey man, do you want to come down? I was like, 100%. Yeah. So it's kind of crazy because it's for me. The growth that's happened in them 2 years is so nice to see, and it's such a cool thing to sort of take time away and come back and be like, oh, it's got even better and even bigger.
Well, you're a natural fit, as you said. You've dipped your toe in the Riptide waters before, and you've worked with Rosa. You obviously know the British scene. You know all the guys and everyone when you come down. So yeah, it is a natural fit for you to come back here.
Yeah, it's funny with being an MC or a ring announcer, because I'm a massive believer in right person for the right job, and I did Fight Club for a long time, and the reason I departed Fight Club was because it was the right time for me to depart. So I think it's nice for me now. I'm in a position where I can kind of dip in and come into certain companies, and Riptide's always really, really high on that list.
Well, we're recording this at day one. By the time I've edited it goes out, the whole thing will be over. So just based on today, any highlights, any particular standouts for yourself?
For me personally, I think, again, if you know me, it's no shock, but Mike Bailey, Jordan Breaks was fantastic.
Had a Japanese flavour?
It did, and then but do you know what's so great about Jordan is he's someone that I earmarked a while ago. Because the first time I saw him, he really reminded me of a young Jack Gallagher, that British style. But the thing now that we're seeing, and especially in that match tonight, that there is an aggression and there's an edge to it. There isn't just this, homage to the Vic Faulkners and the more comedic style. There is that real Marty Jones, Mark Rocco edge. And to see him bring the fight with someone who's such a high caliber wrestler, Mike Bailey, I thought that was just a beautiful mesh tonight.
Yeah, I think that was easily Jordan's best match I've seen. And it was for that exact reason. It was actually going on the offensive, getting fired up.
I think it's so lovely to see a new generation carry on that lineage, but it not be a tribute act, because it's very easy to be a tribute act. He's put his own slant on it, his own flavour on it, and the more he progresses, the better it's going to get. And I genuinely think he's got incredibly high ceiling in terms of where he can go.
No, I completely agree, and exactly as you're saying, like, again, if you look at the ring gear he's in, it looks like throwback gear.
Yeah,
it's easy to go, oh yeah, it's just a throwback, but it's not. He's moving beyond that. It takes time. Things don't happen instantly, but you can see his growth, and that's been a great thing at Riptide, actually, seeing him over the last year, in fact, seeing how his skill set's advanced, his confidence advanced. He's having more fun in there, I think.
Yeah, and I've been fortunate to see it happen with Gallagher. I've seen it happen with Zack Sabre Jr. and I heard all the naysayers and the doubters, and it took them a long time to be able to do the craft that they wanted to, and I think they've set a path in motion for Jordan, and it's not going to be easier because there's higher expectations now, because we've seen a modern style of that style of like Lord Mount Evans style wrestling, so he's got a lot of pressure on him, especially in a company like this he's a hometown boy, and he's in a position where he's super popular, but he absolutely knocked it out of the park tonight.
And any other standouts so far?
I have never seen anything quite like Su Yung and Cara Noir.
I've definitely never seen offensive weapons such as a bike and an egg.
So I've seen a bike, but I feel like the bike was very creative. Obviously, given it was a Bushi, yeah. I've seen it in person as well with a few of us.
Myself, in fact.
Yeah,
forget the bike. The bike's old.
Yeah, there was almost an element of using the bike like some James Bond weapon to kill a villain. It was again. I've seen a lot of things, but that is something I've never seen.
Well, Mr. Bond, you look tired.
Yeah, it was very much like the end of an 80s Bond movie. Rascals always tear it up, man. Always good to see those dudes. But I just think it's that. I know this sounds like, I'm going to be saying it because it's on brand and it serves me well, but it's the young talent, Chikara, OJ Mo, Connor Mills, Millie, Chevs. Like, there is such a solid foundation of young talent that are good and capable now. But places like Riptide are giving them even more opportunities to shine, and I think the big takeaway for me tonight is I've seen growth of people, and that is something that really, really makes me happy and makes me really still enjoy this. So
awesome. We'll leave it there. Do you want to promote any of your other podcasts?
No, dude, I don't. No.
It's not why
yeah, no.
For the love of the game.
No, and genuinely, like, I'm super, like, it's funny when people meet me because everyone's probably like, oh, he's going to plug everything. I'm like, I hate talking about myself, man. Like, my job is to talk about everyone else, make them look good, and it's super easy when you come down here because I absolutely adore Riptide, and it's been a pleasure, man.
I will say, previous to this, off the record, you'd already mentioned you nearly lived in Brighton at one point.
I did. It nearly happened. Don't tell anyone in Manchester. Yeah, man. It's my love of everything mods and Motown, so it nearly happened, man.
Amazing. Well, thanks for giving me some time.
No worries, man.
And Matt Richards can be found on Twitter at mrichardshost. Say he didn't want to promote himself, and yet his own Twitter handle is that he's a host. Unbelievable. But you can certainly listen to Tuesday Night Jaw, which he's involved in a few things, but that was him taking over Jim Smallman's podcast. And can I just say, there's a fantastic episode very recently where Matt sort of looks into wrestling feuds he particularly loved, and there's a great one with William Regal and Dean Ambrose, aka John Moxley, discussing a feud they had in FCW. That was just a particular highlight I had recently listening to it. Right, so that was our first interview done. Now I'm going to get on to the second section. This is all to do with debuts. People making their first appearances at Riptide, really. I mean, I say first appearances. Let's start, what the hell, with Su Yung, first of all. She has appeared at Riptide. She did interfere in a match, but these were her first matches down here. She had two. They're both going to be in the next section of my standout matches of the weekend, and I don't want to say too much more about those specifically right now, but she's left a massive impact. I think it was clear that, she's such a unique character. The undead bride, the bloody undead bride, which sounds even better when you're English. It's like, bloody undead bride, come round here, causing trouble. But she managed to fit right in like a glove, like a possessed glove. Great debut showings from her. I'm sure the crowd would be happy to see her again sometime. Who else? Well, obviously we had Big Swole. Big Swole, fantastic American wrestler. Now, as I alluded to earlier, Chikara is now a face, and I'm going to be discussing the match that happened in later, so I'll save my praise for Big Swole for then. But it was great for her to come over, as a dare I say, relatively unknown to the Riptide crowd, but almost instantly everyone knew what she was about and everybody was into her. So obviously doing a great job. Still on the singles, who do we have? We had Tate Mayfair. Young guy, I'll be the first to say I was not aware of him at all prior to this, but he's got something. Definitely got sometimes it's the little things that can win me over, and the fact that he's got like a paisley scarf that matches his tights. It sounds very silly, but it shows he's got the beginnings of his character, and he wants things to align aesthetically. He was aware of his presentation, and and at the risk of sounding like JR, he's got a good look. Young, fresh, in great shape. Definitely is not a shrinking violet. You can see the way he sort of chanting to the fans and stuff, and is back talking. So I think, I'm not, like I say, I wasn't aware of him prior to this, but I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye on him now. I think a lot of potential there. Another solo performer, Darius Lockhart. Wow. Now, Darius has definitely made an impact and really impressed me. Now, part of that is just because he came out to a Marvin Gaye song at the start, and I'm a Marvin Gaye fan, so, he could have come out and spat at me, and I'd have probably been cheering him on some level. But he didn't do that, because he's a very dignified chap, and his character is sort of an affirmative action, pro-equal rights for African-American athletes, and beyond that, of course, equality worldwide. But yeah, he's just got. I'm sure you've all heard the phrase like the best wrestling characters are people turned up to 11, and that can be true. You take an existing personality trait and just enhance it, so it seems like a rock star. It seems larger than life. I think that's what Darius is doing for sure. But the reason it's connecting with the crowd is precisely because there's reality to it. There is underrepresentation in all walks of life, but certainly in professional wrestling, and you can tell that Darius Lockhart, the be a revolutionary character, it means something to him. You can really see it in his eyes when he's talking, and you can see it even when he's just doing his catchphrase of be a revolutionary, or when he's talking to the crowd, or it's present, and you can tell it means something, and because of that it's coming across with more power. And then on top of that, again, like with Tate Mayfair, he looks the part, he looks great, he's in great shape, he moves smoothly in the ring. So when you start combining someone who has a really unique character but something they believe in, along with a professional skill level, that's when you really start to sort of get noticed, I think, and get bigger and bigger. So I think there's a big future for Darius Lockhart. I was just impressed with him outright. Let's move on though. Who else have we got? We got tag teams. We had the besties in the world. Once you've seen that entrance, you know them, and that certainly was the case. They were definitely beloved by the crowd. Keep doing what you're doing, boys. Who else? So we had Cody Lane and Shane Saber. I wasn't familiar with them. Again, good in the ring, good chemistry, working together well. We had the Rascals, international imports. You get in a team like them, you know it's going to be incredibly high quality action content, and it was Zachary Wentz and Desmond Xavier. The tag team moves in tandem, beautifully timed. But it's not just that, it's the jaw-jacking with the crowd, the back and forth. They're having a good time, and they're making sure the crowd have a good time. They were absolute pros, did their job perfectly. I can certainly say in the area I was standing in, a few people said they didn't know who they were the first time they came out, because not everyone follows all independent companies from abroad or else, worldwide. Within that match, they'd all walked away going, wow, that's a great team. And that's what you get when you get in professionals like those guys. So Rascals, great job, really stood out. Again, I think the crowd would be really happy to have those guys come back sometime. Another tag team, absolutely need noticing, Club Tropicana. Two mad Irish guys. There's not a lot I can say that would do justice beyond watch them. I'll be talking about them in my matches of the weekend. They were notable. They were very notable. One and done was all it took. Everyone knows Club Tropicana now. There was also a scramble match, which featured various people sort of up, sort of on the up. We had one of Brighton's own, Rebel Kinney, also against JJ Lynch, against Aaliyah James, against Kafka, against Visage. I'll say to me, Visage really stood out, and Kafka in the entrance just stood out. You got Flag Waver, you've got 1,000 Blessings. You have to stand out. Kafka stands out. And then we're on to my final debut, and I've deliberately saved this person for last, and that's because we got an interview with him straight after this, and that is Daniel Makabe, over from Canada. Absolutely stunning performance for him, I thought. I think the crowd really latched onto what he was doing really quickly, reacted really well. So there's not much more I can say right now before we go into this interview. Right, I'm joined by Daniel Makabe, wrestling genius.
Yes.
I put it to you, the real wrestling genius was the genius who wrestled in WWF at the time. What's going on, man?
He's always going to be leaping Lanny Poffo to me. Yeah. So he leaps, and he's the genius as well. But not much is going on. I had I would say semi-successful debut for RIPTIDE tonight. Semi. Well, I didn't win the match, but hopefully I won over some of the audience, and hopefully it just leads to more opportunities and a good match tomorrow, hopefully. So
I think you did win them over. You had like 3 or 4 chants for your name. You had people popping when you're in submissions, chanting for Chapman to tap.
And for someone like me who really counts on those kind of things to hit with people, that's all I can ask for too, right? So that was nice. It was a nice reception. I've only been here twice in the last couple months, but I already love wrestling in England. Everyone gets the technical stuff a little bit more, even if maybe it's not their cup of tea. Yep. They've seen it a lot more.
There's a patience for it.
There's a patience for it, and when something pops, it's like, they really get it. And there's some crowds like that in North America, don't get me wrong, but they're less, I think they're just more compact over here, and they're more like per capita. There's more, I don't want to say smarter fans, but they're just a little more accustomed to the style. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was going to lead into somewhere I was going, which is obviously with England development of it, you've got Escapology, Billy Robinson, all that sort of stuff. As far as I'm aware, you seem to have some sort of World of Sport type influence on you. Is this?
Yeah, for sure. It's an influence. So it's not just World of Sport, but there's so few people that I can really do that style properly with over in North America. So I take elements of it for sure, but I also take elements from the maestro kind of chain wrestling in lucha. I take elements from a lot of shoot style and MMA kind of elements, and then you have your traditional pro wrestling kind of holds and exchanging. And so I'm a little bit of everything wrapped into one, and what's the Jack of all trades, master of none? Something like that.
I mean, when I say World of Sport, I can see there's other stuff because of your striking, if nothing else. That's different to everyone. I've got to admit, I can't quite put my finger on what it is, but there is something different about the strikes you're doing.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the body blows. I don't know, it's something. It's like you're doing your whole... It's like straight forearms, like jabs almost.
I throw the hard forearms. I do throw body blows. Not a lot of people throw body blows. And that's very much inspired by being a fan of mixed martial arts and boxing. And thinking... I don't want to say I'm thinking outside of the box, but there's certain things that I pick up on in watching real fights, or that I think, well, why couldn't people do that in the... context of a wrestling match, and so there's a few little things like that I've adopted, like the body blows, like I throw the big baseball wind up punch, and I will never hit it more than once in a match. When I hit it, I make it mean something, right? But I don't want to be someone who necessarily has to rely on it. It's a part of my game, certainly, but I want things to be meaningful. Just in general in wrestling, I want things to be meaningful. So,
well, actually, that big sort of baseball punch is perfect to that, because I love that. I really love that move because it's pure theatrics. Because in theory, if it's a real punch, you don't need to do the pause and the double hand back. It wouldn't make a difference. But because you do it, everyone knows it's a big moment and everyone reacts.
Yes.
And that's what I love about it. It's everything crafted down perfectly. So if you're timing it well in a match, it's just a beautiful thing.
Yes. And I liked how I timed it today. Sometimes I make it even. I mean, it was impactful, but sometimes it can be really impactful. But thank you. I mean, that's a huge compliment. It's So I appreciate it.
So I don't think sorry, just explain to the listeners, there's some hoovering going on because there's some hard-working people just cleaning up the venue. I don't think I'm ruining anything by saying I was with the producer of RIPTIDE, Tom, recently, and we were watching your match with Carlos on YouTube, Breed Wrestling. Yeah. Great match. And one of the things that really stood out to us, and it links into what you're saying about like the punches and doing stuff that other people wouldn't do watching MMA, it's your stance. You don't stand like a wrestler waiting for something to happen. Yeah. You stand like someone who is in a position to react. Yeah. There is something we noticed, in a good way. So,
I don't think that one's not even so much a conscious, like, I want to be different, or that's just kind of, feeling. And I do a lot of just like starting things off, but kind of like almost dipping down to a knee and sliding in like almost like an amateur wrestler would, or kind of trying to invite someone down into my world. But one thing that that I do incorporate in my stance, which this is like super nerdy, I apologize, but that people, I don't think I've ever seen anyone do, is there's like a boxer's defensive position that was most famously used by Floyd Mayweather, where he'll have his lead arm down to throw a jab with, and he uses what would normally be his power hand as a way of like a defense mechanism. He blocks the far side of his jaw with it. And so I do that quite often, where I'll kind of lean in and I'll keep that up there as a defense mechanism, just in case if I'm getting down onto my knees and I'm trying to invite someone in and someone decides to kick me in the face. From a logical standpoint, I would want to be prepared and ready for that. So it's very much, again, inspired by counter fighters, counter punchers in real fighting. It's so I mean, maybe it's a little more conscious than I'm letting on, but and again, the other thing is, everything for the most part that I do, I try to be different. So because there's a million independent wrestlers out there, and we're all trying to do what we can to stand out. And I'm not going to be everyone's cup of tea, but I'm really going to be someone's cup of tea. That's kind of how I like to approach it.
Well, luckily you're in England and we love tea.
Yes,
so.
Good call. I do too.
Actually, on that note, as far as I'm aware, you're a big fan of both punk and football, and by football I mean soccer, as the Americans would call it. Is that football or soccer in Canada?
We call it soccer in Canada as well.
Bastards.
Yeah, we do.
So you're a soccer and punk and music fan.
Yes.
Is that good coming over here? Like, do you get to watch games or pick up items?
It hasn't really worked out for me yet. I've only ever been to a football match over here once, and it was like 10 plus years ago, and it was just when I was visiting some friends. The last time I was here for Breed was the same weekend as an international break, and so all the major leagues were, like, the EPL was off, the championship was off, and this weekend Brighton's actually home to Tottenham tomorrow, but it's at the exact same time as the show. And so otherwise I would love to go see that. I'm not a supporter of either. I'm really not a supporter of Tottenham, but yeah, so far not so much. Punk, I've gone to record stores while I've been over here. I'm really good about being cautious about what I buy, partially because usually my bags are pretty full with both my wrestling gear and merchandise. This weekend especially, because in addition to wrestling for RIPTIDE, I'm wrestling for WXW in Germany, so I've got a lot of gear with me, more than I'd probably normally carry. And I don't want to bend records, so I don't want to have to carry extra things or try and squeeze things in precariously and possibly end up getting back to Canada with some damaged goods. And to be perfectly honest, there isn't anything. I'd make an exception if there's something that I was really seeking that I haven't found elsewhere. I just there's something about going to record stores that I find peaceful, and I just I get a lot of my ideas for new music that I want to check out at record stores. So I'm happy just to browse, even though obviously that does nothing for the shops. But yeah, in the future, I mean, if I'm over here for longer, and then. I'm gonna have to exhibit some serious self-control. But in the meantime, I'm being pretty. I'm on my best behavior.
Well, hopefully, at the very least, next time you're back, I've no doubt there will be a next time you're back in England. You'll at least be able to go to a pub and watch a football game with the crowd.
That would be great. And I used to do that for my local supporters group for the EPL team that I support, that I won't necessarily name out loud for fear of losing fans. But look at one of my most recent shirt designs. You can probably figure it out. A London club. Anyways, but yeah, so I used to be a member of the local Vancouver supporters group, and so there's a lot of expats that are over in Vancouver, and so I got some of the experience, but not the full experience. I'd love to go to a game. I know it's very hard to get to some of the more high profile EPL games, but and involves spending a lot of money on tickets, which I don't have. But one day that's the dream is to go to see Chelsea play live. If I'm being perfectly honest.
Well, I'm not saying we could ever do that, but the next time we're in Brighton, I'm sure we can at least go to the King and Queen and watch a football game.
That sounds great too. Then go
watch a local band or something.
Yes, for sure.
This doesn't tie in, but one question I just need to ask.
Yeah.
The name Makabe.
Yes.
I mean, I don't want to cross any lines here, but I'm presuming it's not your real name.
No.
So where's the origin for that?
I've told this one before a few times, so it's no secret. So it's based off of. He currently goes by Togi Makabe in New Japan Pro Wrestling. Gorilla. Correct. Yeah. The man who swears more in English than you'd ever expect, but I love it. It's like one of my favorite things is during his hot comeback when he just swears at people. But so at the time that I first got trained and broke in, he had been a New Japan young boy for quite some time, and he had kind of graduated past the stage of being a young boy. And he had kind of graduated. He wasn't just doing the opening matches, but he was still just wearing the black trunks. He had a very basic move set. And so just as an off remark when trying to think of a name, I joked that because I was training and I was now the young boy for our local group, and because I have a bit of a self-deprecating sense of humor, I thought, I'm the young boy and I'll be perpetually a young boy just like Togi Makabe. Yeah. And then I just sort of went, Daniel Makabe. That kind of has an okay ring to it. Great, yeah. But it was originally kind of a joke amongst my friends, and then 16 years later, I'm still stuck with it. So,
but then he's gone on to win the IWGP Championships.
Yeah, he won the G1 one year too. So nowadays he's getting up there in age. But the funny thing about him, this is like fun food for thought for anyone who like maybe doesn't know all the ins and outs of New Japan. He is like probably the second or third most recognizable name to a mainstream audience in Japan, because he goes on a bunch of like cooking shows, and he's quite popular, with the people who aren't necessarily wrestling fans, but he's kind of a personality on talk shows. So I think that's kind of funny. I make a list of goals at the beginning of the year, and one of the ones I made for this year was to get a picture with him, because I thought that would be fun. And I assumed when New Japan was running Madison Square Garden and I was over for WrestleMania weekend in New York City as well, I figured that might come up, but he wasn't on that show. They didn't bring him over. Yeah. And so I don't think I'm going to get my picture with Togi Makabe in 2019. Maybe in 2020. But
you got to keep those hopes alive.
We'll see. Yeah. I follow him on Twitter, so maybe one day he'll discover like, who's this guy with my fake last name? Or it's his real last name. Wow. But it's my fake last name. So
oddly, he's on my hit list to get a handshake with, just because I've managed Ishii and Goto. Yeah. Not him.
I bet he's got a real firm handshake.
Well, do you know what?
What about Ishii and Goto's?
I'll give you Ishii's right now. You going for a handshake? I'll give you exactly what Ishii did.
Okay.
Now the listeners will be curious, and they'll never know.
That's the power of audio, guys.
But that's true still.
You're fine.
Ah, God.
Oh, shut. Is it still recording?
Yeah, we're fine.
Yeah.
Good. Sorry.
There goes the Pride of Brighton. Hopefully you've enjoyed your time in Brighton so far. You've got another match to go at the time of recording.
Absolutely. Like the one thing as you start to get more and more busy in this world is you get to go a lot more places, but you don't necessarily get to see a lot more places. And I went, I flew into Germany yesterday, and I had a match in Essen, Germany, and that was great. But literally, I saw the drive to and from the building from the airport. And so I really haven't had much time to explore the area. Hopefully, I'll get some, maybe not. We'll see. But the fact that I was able to get to Brighton so early today and got to explore a little bit, and I'm a fairly avid walker, and I just like to see the places that I go and go to record stores and go to local coffee stores and as cliche as it is, it was nice to walk down by the sea and down the pier and get some fresh air. And it was a relatively nice day out today. I'm from Vancouver, so our weather is very similar. So I'm sure a lot of people listening at home were kind of like, I'm sure it wasn't that nice of a day, but I like that kind of weather. I'm a fall kind of guy. So yeah, no, I love Brighton. I do have dates in the works to come back to England, and I would love to come back to Brighton at some point too, because it's a beautiful city, and Riptide's amazing. Like, the show was amazing. I got to watch most of the show because luckily I was on first, which is the best spot to be on a show. Any wrestler will tell you that. So yeah, no complaints, and I can't wait to be back.
Awesome. And I'll say this in advance because the match doesn't happen yet. I think you and Jordan Breaks are going to be the match of the entire weekend. At least for my tastes, I think you guys are going to absolutely rip it apart.
I don't like to put too much pressure on myself, but that's 100% the goal. So let's hope we can do it.
Rock on.
Daniel Makabe can be found on Twitter at Daniel Maccabi. That's all one word. Makabe is spelled Makabe. If you want some of his merch, actually, there's a UK producer who have worked with Daniel up north called Mecha Shotei, which is MECHASHOTEI. Very cool couple of guys who run a little wrestling company where they do sort of punk-based generally Japanese-inspired wrestling gear, and they're fans of Daniel. They've worked with Daniel to produce some T-shirts and stuff. I think right now the T-shirts have sold out, but you can still get a pin badge on the site. So if you're interested, check out them. And yeah, and you heard from the interview, he gave me a solid chunk of his time, and this is one of the things I heard about Mr. Makabe was at Merch Village. Makabe had plenty of time for everyone who wanted it. It's really friendly, spending real time to talk to fans. And I can tell you firsthand, that guy was exhausted. The very fact he gave me that interview at the end of the first night, I mean, he was pretty sleep deprived, and he'd flown from Canada to Germany to wrestle, over to England to wrestle. Then he was, going back to Germany. It was crazy. So a real scholar and a gent. Now we're on to the third section, which is going to be my favourite sort of standout matches from the whole weekend. Listen, from a pure in-ring action perspective, this may have been Riptide's best, if you're putting back-to-back matches against one another. So if I'm missing any out that sound like obvious to listeners who were there live or have seen it on demand or will see it on demand or whatever, all I can say is these are the ones that just popped to me personally. It's all subjective. It comes down to tastes. So here we are. And this is not in any order, I need to stress. This is just, pluck out of the air. Well, let's start with Su Yung, because she had two really interesting matches. First was against Cara Noir. That was just a no disqualification match, but it may as well have been a fans bring their own weapons match, because at one point a bicycle ended up used as a weapon. A bicycle. There's some matches, if you say, oh, you had to be there to see it, it sounds like dismissive. But the fact with this one is, even watching it on demand, you had to be there to see it. It was just the whole thing, the attitude of the crowd, the reactions. It's quite interesting actually for a no disqualification match. It's quite a slow burner to begin with, but it has to be by its very nature, because both Su Yung and Cara Noir are sort of silent figures who sort of get their characters across through body language, and they're kind of trying to suss each other out and work out what makes the other one tick. So it sort of slowly builds up, but then once it starts getting crazy, it starts getting really crazy, and I think it worked really well because the two characters interacted so well. They were each kind of effectively freaked out by one another for different reasons, and they each had no limits on what they do to win. And so I think that was one of my match nights. And then second performance by Su Yung was against Gene Money. And just when you think, wow, they must have used up all their creative juices with Cara Noir and Su Yung, no, you got Gene Money in the mix. He's known for being a creative entity all of his own. You put him and Su Yung, you get a very different type of sort of no DQ match. At least I assume it was no DQ, because there was a murder. Yes, that's right. It was a mad comedy match. All kinds of weirdness going on. But Gene Money can make anybody laugh, and Su Yung can make anyone go, what? So when you mix the two of them, you just get this insane match. And let's include the ref in this, because he did his part perfectly as well. I apologise for not knowing his name, but he was pitch perfect in it. Two great matches, both really creative and different. I was really glad to just be there live for both of those, actually. The tag team finals, of course. We had the Rascals against Team Medusa. I know I've already spoiled the result much earlier on. Like I said, some things I just can't help but spoil, unfortunately. But It's a great match. Even if you know the result, absolutely check it out. The Rascals work so well as a team, both with each other and also with the crowd, with the way they respond to heckles. And then you've got Medusa Complex, both fun-loving girls, but who are really talented in the ring and hard-hitting. Like, you almost forget how hard Medusa Complex can hit. And then when they can go full out against a team like the Rascals, you can see it in full. So I think that was a brilliant tag team finals match. Well deserving of being for the tag team trophy. Sticking with the old tag teams, let's go with Club Tropicana versus Bird Law. Kaka! Bird Law is Speedball Bailey and Vader Scott teaming up for the first time down here. I thought that was fantastic for both of them. They were doing a much more sort of comical match, and I think it's really good for Speedball to actually show another side of his personality, because we all know he's an arse-kicking match of the night performer, and yeah, he comes out all smiles, but once he's in the ring, it's all business. So this is why it was kind of nice to see him just cut loose and show his personality more in the ring. Vader, the opposite side of that, Vader is sort of all personality, and she normally excels in sort of creative environments where she can find little moments to wring comedy out of. And this was pure comedy, so she had all these people to play off, and it really sort of plays to her strengths, really, in this sort of larger-than-life atmosphere, which included Club Tropicana, who, look, I'm going to say this, Club Tropicana had a mark against them from the moment I heard they were announced, having never seen them before, simply because I went to the same school as George Michael, right, and we had the same music teacher and all this, and it just means George Michael songs get played a lot in my hometown. So growing up, anytime you're in a pub, there'll be a George Michael song on, and you can get sick of it real fast. So the minute I hear Club Tropicana, I know what the theme song is going to be. So that was my preconceived notion. Forget my preconceived notion. These guys are gold, pure liquid gold. Comedy geniuses from Ireland. Captain Sexy and Aiden. Absolute madness from start to finish. But, you know, comedy matches, they can just be painful to watch. If the comedy doesn't hit and it feels forced, it doesn't work. This one just works beautifully. Kind of like with Gene Money and Su Yung. Sometimes everything just clicks. The crowd are into it. The performers are into it. You can tell everyone's having a good time. This was one of those. Fantastic show. Really enjoyed it. I think it's not only important for Speedball to have shown this other side to him. I think it's really blown. I think Club Tropicana really blew people away, and hopefully we'll be getting them back at some point. I'm actually looking forward to it, and like I said, because of the George Michael thing, I never normally look forward to Club Tropicana. One match almost could have gone under the radar. Cassius versus Cara Noir. I have no doubt in saying this was Cassius's finest appearance at Riptide. Cara Noir, always a show stealer, but combined, it worked so well because Cassius was forced to really sort of overcome the odds where if you watch the start of the match, he doesn't really know what to make of Noir. He's trying to be fun-loving, but it's kind of drained out of his face a bit. So he's got to find a new sort of endurance level beyond that to get through the match and to win. And it just worked. It just really worked. Also just on an aesthetic level, you've got Cassius is in bright neon colours and glittery and tanned and jumping up and down. And you've got Cara Noir in black and white, very still. Yeah, so even on that level, it just worked really well having those two in the ring together. So that was a great one. Then we're on to, Jordan breaks. Or, as I heard at the Brighton Open Air Theatre from a little child, Georgian breaks. God, I love that child's chant. Jordan versus Daniel Makabe in a British rounds match. So 5-minute rounds, best of 3. I thought it was exceptional, really exceptional. I love technical wrestling when it's done by two people who treat it really seriously and have dedicated themselves to it. And you can tell Jordan and Daniel have both done that. Every movement was for a reason. Again, Daniel mentioned this in his interview earlier, but every movement was for a reason. Every hold told its own story and built up to something. The falls make sense. Really strong. And it's nice having seen the day one match with Makabe teaming up in CC Makabe with Chris Brooks as fan favourites. In this one, he was just that a little more eager to win, a little bit darker edged perhaps. So it just worked because everything was told through the characters and through the in-ring work. And it all made sense, it all connected. If you're a technical wrestling fan, absolutely check this out. I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. And oddly, while we're on the subject of Jordan, what about his match with Speedball Bailey? Oh my God, that was definitely my match of day one. That was just brilliant. I love it when styles clash. So you got technician versus a sort of martial artist, ground-based versus high flyer, and just everything worked. Speedball seems to always bring out the best in people, and I think this is absolutely true here. I think, personally, between this and Makabe, I think this was Jordan's best weekend at Riptide, and I think, you could pick either one as a show stealer. I thought the Speedball one was fantastic. I really felt like Jordan actually stepped up several levels on like a career rung. And I said the same thing about Curtis Chapman at the Brighton Open Air Theatre main event show, where I think, it's one thing to be on a career progression and climbing up slowly and winning people over and showing what you can do, and that's fantastic. That's what everyone's aiming to do. But that Brighton Open Air show, I think Curtis jumped up a few rungs on that ladder, and I think Jordan did the same thing in this match. Him and Speedball, it really felt like a main event style match, and Jordan absolutely brought it and held his own. We already know Speedball can do it, so seeing it come out of breaks equally was just fantastic. And also commiserations to Jordan's chest, because there's one kick, it just sounded like a shotgun going off in the venue. It was so hard. I can only imagine how sore that must have been in the shower the next day. But great match, absolutely loved that one. And speaking of which, I'm not the only one who felt that way. Shall we cut to our interview with our fan?
I am joined by Yuan, who is the first, I believe, Riptide fan on this podcast.
Yeah. Special.
And why are we putting you on the podcast? Very simple. Two reasons. Number one, you said you would do.
I'm starting to do more podcasts now.
This is your hat trick, isn't it?
A hat trick, yeah, because I got my own one. We'll do with Dave. Yeah. Dave Lovell, you can find it at Swapcast. And I've appeared on Graps and Claps before, so it's the third official podcast. It's the hat trick.
Very nice.
I'm the best podcast.
I'm blushing. And I also thought, honestly, this is a nice feature, is fans at shows, if they want to stop me just for a quick chat, we can do that. So you're the inaugural champ of it.
Oh, like the Chuck Mambo, the Riptide fan group.
Yeah.
Oh,
or the Cassius.
Or the Cassius. I can be either.
Yeah. I mean, that shirt, you're more Gene Money, but there's nothing wrong with that either.
Yeah.
But listen, I suppose the most obvious questions are for you.
Right.
Given we're in the middle of the third show of the weekend, what are your highlights so far?
I think Jordan Breaks has been the MVP of this weekend. I think he's had two very different style of matches, but he's passed with flying colours in both of them. I thought the match against Bailey was a really good mix of styles. Really reminded me a lot of PWG style, with when Zack Sabre Jr. was fighting really high flying guys and stuff like that. I think that was a really good mix. And the Makabe match, first ever British rounds match in Riptide history, I thought was absolutely stunning. So I thought it was a piece of art watching that match. And Jordan, I think, surpassed with flying colours. I'd love to see him hold the Pride of Brighton title one day. I think he's honestly a star in his promotion. The other thing is, Cara Noir, as always, has had two amazing matches. And I love what's going on with him at the moment, the storytelling aspect. And, just one day he's going to get that big win, and the place is going to go bananas to quote the great Gorilla Monsoon. But they're definitely my highlights of the weekend. And obviously, you've just seen the first half of this show, Club Tropicana. I'm a massive fan of them from OTT, so to see them in Brighton and seems to get such a good reaction, I thought was amazing.
So entertaining.
They're amazing, honestly amazing. And on the social side of things, I've had a really nice weekend so far. I think it's I love Riptide with my heart, really. I love coming down to Brighton, love the fans, I love just the whole community aspect we've got going on here. It is absolutely, I go to a lot of shows, but this is absolutely my favourite promotion in the country. Why?
People are going to think I've paid you for this.
No one's paid me. MJ has paid me £27 million. No. But honestly, I'm like, this weekend is incredible. And credit to Josh and Tom and everybody who works behind the scenes for putting together such an incredible weekend.
Well, look, we better get out of here. I've got to clear this cheque for you.
Yeah, you've got to clear a cheque for me. It's Santander you send that bank to. Thank you, MJ.
That's all right, man.
So that was Ewan Mackenzie, who I was talking to. As he said, he's got his own podcast called Swapcast. And you can follow Ewan on Twitter. I'll just spell out the Twitter handle at IWANMACK, Ewan Mac. There's only two more left to discuss. Let's start with TK versus Mambo. Now, at the Riptide Rumble 2019, TK Cooper versus Chuck Mambo is possibly my favourite Riptide match ever. It's neck and neck with a couple, but on the right day of the week, that is my all-time favourite. I thought it was pretty much perfect. And so I was curious, how would you top that, essentially? Well, how do you top it? Well, you just let the two guys do it again with a bit more viciousness to them. TK seemed to have all of Mambo's moves scouted, really told the story of two friends who don't necessarily want to hurt each other, but at the same time have had enough of each other and don't trust each other anymore. And it just came out in a more hard-hitting match. And, when you're watching it, you can hear... I mean, don't get me wrong, Mambo is beloved by the crowd, but the crowd was split. There were 50-50 dueling chants for both of them. And that tells you how good this match was and how clear it was that either one of them could be the victor, which is a key to a great match. And then that leaves one more of my matches to talk about on the best of the weekend. And that is Chikara versus Big Swole, the second match, the rebound match. So the essential story is that Chikara is being challenged to be a better role model, to be a better representation of Afro-Caribbean British athletes. And Big Swole is telling her, don't cheat, you're better than that, be proud, win on your own terms. And that's what this second match was all about. It was Chikara rising to the occasion. Bear in mind, Big Swole is not established in RIPTIDE. So to come over and be able to get this storyline going in the case of a weekend is really something. Meanwhile, Chikara has been despised and boozed heavily for the last 2 years, and she gets to turn babyface, and the crowd are gagging to do it. So both parties, it just felt like it connected exactly right with one another and with the crowd. It's a tough story to do that quickly over a weekend when you're doing a complete 180-degree turn with a character, as happened with Chikara, and to do it to the point the crowd are, tearing up at the end. I might have had some tears myself. No, I'm not saying. I'm just, damn pies, perhaps. It was the storytelling that made it such a great match. And that does seamlessly lead on to our third interview, which is with Chikara. Right, I am joined by brand new crowd favourite Chikara.
Hello.
We're at the end of the third show, and it's safe to say you were one of the absolute beloved highlights of the day. We were just talking before we turned the recorder on, actually, that I was saying I think the crowd have been waiting to cheer you for a long time.
Yeah.
I think they can see how hard you've been working.
A lot of people have been saying that all night. It's just
Yeah.
it's nice. It's nice feeling, really nice feeling, really, really nice feeling. So, yeah, I'm happy. I'm buzzing.
I can see. It's nice to see you smile.
I know, right? I don't smile ever.
Of course, Big Swole, massive part in this.
Yep.
Great storyline putting together.
Yep.
Earning her respect and moving forward and so on.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I bring this up straight away is you've just done a video with James Musselwhite.
Yep.
Promoting how representation as a black woman
Yep.
in professional wrestling, in British professional wrestling, is
Yep.
particularly rare.
Yep.
So it must be, I presume, incredibly satisfying to now have this story.
Yeah, it's
this
great
moment.
timing. It's good
Yeah.
timing. It's like that came out, that got a lot of traction. Then this happened today. It's just like it's just sort of solving things that I've said in my video about like representation
Yep.
and stuff like that. And yeah, it feels good. It feels really good, and I'm happy that video got traction, and we're going from there really. So I'm happy.
It is Black History Month as well. Black
And
British
it is.
History,
There you
so
go.
God,
There
it
you
all
go.
tying together, isn't it?
It is like what's going on? It's great.
I guess some of the stuff I wanted to talk about is kind of just jumping around a bit.
Go ahead.
But what have you got against baseball caps and snapbacks?
My head's too big to fit them.
Is that it?
Yeah, I can't. They don't suit me at all.
My head's too small to fit them.
You can
I have a-
tighten yours.
I've got a baby's head.
I'd rather have
too-
your head.
Really?
Yeah, man. I'd rather have yours.
Okay. Am I correct that you met Candy on a message board way before you were wrestling?
Yeah, on Twitter.
Okay.
Yeah,
so, because this is a story I'd heard, but
So we were 13 years old, and I saw her. Her at name was at the time Amy_WWE. It's like, oh my god, she likes wrestling.
Yeah.
She's like my age. Oh my god. So I DM'd her. I was like, oh my god, hi. My name's Chikara. I'm a wrestling fan. Like she's like, oh my god, hi. And then we were like, oh my god, like I want to be a wrestler. I'm old. I want to be a WWE diva. Like say, oh my god. Conversation sort of ends after that. 2 years later, when we were 15, saw her at the Projo. I was like, mate, this is weird. We followed our dreams. So I feel like we think like we did it together, and like we became best friends ever since then. So yeah, we were 13 when we first talked.
yeah.
And that was what, so 46 years ago we first talked. I think so, yeah, something
It's
like that.
crazy to think not just that happened, but also how much you've both come in 6 years. So 6
Yeah.
years ago you weren't even wrestlers.
No,
And now you're both
just fans.
really taking over the scene in England, really.
Oh God.
I mean, on the way, you know.
Yeah.
You've had big matches of progress. You're now big babyface here.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah, it's great. Like me and Candy's been doing this together for like 4.5 years now, so it's good to see each other progressing, stuff like that. I'm proud of her. She's proud of me, which is nice. So yeah.
You have touched on this with James Musselwhite, but just for our listeners, Chikara, What's the Golden Goddess? Sum it up.
Like, I just loved that era, and I did a lot of research on it. Mm-hmm. And I saw like Cleopatra, stuff like that, and that sort of inspired me and my gear, the Egyptian symbol, stuff like that. That was sort of one of the things that I wanted to portray, stuff like that, like the Eye of Horrors, and I've got the Egyptian dragon in my new gear at the back. So I wanted to just sort of represent that. I love the Egyptian time, stuff like that.
So I did wonder if it might tie in with Cleopatra, because she's one of the first sort of figurehead powerful women in the world.
She definitely was one of the inspirations for sure. Yeah.
Okay. Somebody else you've learned stuff off, Daryl Allen.
Yep.
Yeah.
First trainer for sure. A lot of respect.
Yeah.
Love him to pieces. Yeah.
You can see what he's doing the knuckle locks right now.
Amazing.
Yeah.
He's the amount of talent he's grown. Immense. Like his portfolio is ridiculous. Like, he's amazing trainer, amazing wrestler, even better wrestler, talented. So yeah, and I can't wait. I want to see him do more because he deserves it. He really does deserve it.
I've heard that from a lot of people, actually.
Yeah, he's one of the best, and it's very, very, very like underutilized, and he deserves more because he can do everything. He's such an all-rounder, perfect all-rounder. He can give you technical, can give you British rounds, can give you strong style, can give you anything you want. You can see people who like he's trained.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, he trained you.
Trained me, trained Canny Floss, trained Mills, Ojmo, all of them.
Yeah. So,
and we're all doing stuff around the country, in Europe and stuff like that, so it's cool.
All right, well, we're starting to get absolutely soaked now, so we're sitting in the rain. But I've got to ask one more thing.
Go ahead.
I've seen the old Tuesday Night Games night.
Oh, God.
Bit of an undefeated gamer, you are.
Yeah, of course I am. Best gamer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where's all this come from? Like a lifetime
Do you know
fan,
what?
or are you just a natural?
I just came round to do some stream. I was like, all right, I'll do some games. I was really starting to enjoy it.
Yeah.
And it sort of became a little hobby for me. So I've got a Switch now. I play a lot of games. Yeah, actually, I don't know why I'm a little bit of a side gamer now. Never used to be, but I think that the streaming stuff and TNGN really made me fall in love with the gaming side. I was like, it's not nerdy. It's actually quite cool to play games, sort of thing. So yeah, that was cool.
Have there been any games you've fallen in love with?
I love it at Fortnite. Not gonna lie, Fortnite. Super Hot. It's a new game. It's not a new game, but it's new to Switch, and I love that game. It's really like slow mo action, and you got to like defeat the bullets, and it's really weird. But if you type in Super Hot into your whatever PS4 computer, fucking sick game.
If I type in Super Hot with my search history, I don't know what.
God, neck crank.
We're in there. Thank you very much for giving me your time.
And Chikara can be found on Twitter at Chakara Wrestler. If you need me to spell that out, you haven't been following closely enough, and you should all feel terrible. She had an absolute beam on her about how the weekend had gone, and we were stood out in that rain, and the rain was almost bouncing off her because of a force field of happiness, whilst I was just getting soaked. But she was great, and I think it's interesting with Chikara is that because of the way the character has been previously, she wasn't necessarily approachable, so people might not know quite how nice she can be, and hopefully that should come out a little bit more now that she's a fan favourite down at Riptide. And so this is me wrapping up the episode. I think this was a fantastic weekend for Riptide. I think storyline-wise it's moved to so many new possibilities. There's all these new ways to develop. It feels like quite sort of fresh and fertile ground. Just before I wrap all this up, I just want to say a big thanks as a fan to Chuck Mambo. He has held that Brighton title with pride. You could tell he went full force each time, and also the way he interacted with the fans. He really went out of his way to make sure it was known he wasn't just a wrestler at Brighton with a championship. He was the Brighton champion. So I'm hoping he can look back at his title run very proud of his efforts. So let's just thank Mr. Mambo there. Mambo! I have been your only host on this episode, so you can follow me on Twitter at @u_total_cult, and there is riptidewrestling.com for all your Riptide needs. I hope to see you at the show in December 6th. Tickets are available on the aforementioned website. And with that, I thank you for joining me.